I've got a mini lathe. It is used, well worn. That's okay. I mean, somebody's already broken in for me, but it needs some help. It needs a belt, first and foremost. And so I've got to figure out how do you get the belt on, because they did not make it easy. This could have been much easier. I like how cars do it. You know, you can slip it over. It works. This, you got to disassemble stuff to get it apart, and I'll show you where we are on this process. It's more common than it needs to be, but it's not impossible. So you can see in here, there should be a belt on those gears. There is no belt on those gears. But I've already gotten it set up. You can see I'm on the verge of a setup of getting this thing loose. So I don't know the names of all these parts, but yeah, this is a chuck, maybe a chuck. So I've gotten a wrench on here, and I've clamped it down just so I don't have to hold on to it. The thing is going to want to spin this way, so that's why, you know, the equipment will block it. And so I put some duct tape on vice grips. You can see I didn't want to mar this piece. And so it should just break. Let's see if I can do this. It needs to turn this way. I looked at the threads, and you know, generally things are turn left to unscrew, to loosen. This is counter thread. I guess just maybe the way this thing spins. Let's see if I can get this one handed. There we go. Is it turning? It is turning. A little bit of resistance. That's okay. It is turning all the same. And so the next step is that once I get this off, you can see a little bit of that shaft. I need to press it that way. And then I can take it off. There's a set screw on these gears. Let's see. Well, I'm not going to turn it. I have to undo all my setup here. There's a set screw in the gears. Once I loosen that, this shaft will pull out. And once the shaft is free of this bearing, is that bearing? Yes. Then I can slip the belt on this side. And you can see down here, the belt just slips on the bottom. This is a multi-speed thing. I don't really know what all that means, all that matters. I may use some fancy Google to figure that out. That's where, when this thing is loose, that's step one. Now you will see there are two set screws, one on this side, one on that side. I did remove those first, otherwise it would have been a little bit more difficult to get those loose. Might have broken something. And I did take this cover off here. It's just plastic cover. So I'm gonna get this thing off, see about pressing that shaft off, and we're well on our way. I don't know what this end piece was, end bell, balancer or something. But the thing that's causing me issues is that set screw right there. You can see it's looking a little rounded because I've tried all sorts of different size Allen wrenches, metric, imperial. You know, I even did a Torx to see if maybe I could get that to fit in a little bit better. I've done the rubber band trick. I put a rubber band in a Torx. Still nothing. This thing is stuck, and that is a problem for this whole situation. Now, could I push hard enough to just get this whole thing off and make it slide? Maybe. Will I better get back on? Well, it's doubtful. So I think what I'm going to try to do is a little bit of super glue right in the hole and hold this piece in place like that. And hopefully I'll give me enough grip to kind of give this a little bit of a turn, because otherwise I don't know what I'm going to do. I mean, this thing, I don't understand why the Allen wrenches don't fit. You know, it worked fine on the end bell. They just don't fit here. You know, they're a little bit too small and the one size up, too big. That's a problem. If you got an idea, let me know. Hindsight's always great. So this is my sacrificial Allen wrench. It may not make it. I've super glued it. You gotta be really careful. I had this awesome super glue. It's got a really thin nozzle. Just crazy glue. Hopefully crazy glue will treat me well. It's got a really small nozzle where I put just a little bit of super glue right in the head of that set screw. And as I was putting the Allen wrench in, I made sure that the super glue is not going to spill over the top, get into the threads, because if it gets into the threads, I think I'm really out of luck on this. I'm going to let this dry for a while. We're going to see what happens. Hopefully it'll give me enough grip to get it. We will soon find out. So I tried to super glue an Allen wrench into the set screw on the lathe. It didn't work. Let it dry. Gave it overnight just to make sure it was going to be perfectly dry. It had a little bit of grip. It twisted. The wrench twisted. The set screw did not move at all. So I went. I thought, instead of drawing this out, let me give it one last ditch effort. I bought an extractor screw set from the good old Harbor Freight. We'll see if that works. If that doesn't work, I will have to drill it out. We'll have to retap it. That's okay. I mean, at this point, the set screw is no good anyway. We're going to see what happens with an extractor set. We'll see if that gets me any farther. So here is my extractor bit. It's got, it's reverse threads or something, I believe, how it works. So we're going to see. I'm going to see if I can set this in here and see what happens. Seem to have some grip. Not as much grip as I'd like. Let's see if we need to go up a size bigger. I'm just doing it by hand. I know I tested them before by hand, and definitely, yeah, you can feel it gripping. I don't know, it's just not gripping enough to actually remove that set screw. Alright, so this might be too big. This is actually tearing into the opening on the pulleys. Let me go back to the small one. I may have already done enough damage that it's moot. I'm really tearing out this set screw though, I'll tell you that much right now. I don't think I'm moving the set screw at all. I think all I'm doing is just tearing it. And you feel it kind of grip into the set screw. But I don't think it's just, must be soft metal. I think I'm just cutting this thing away. So you can see all my metal shavings. This mini lathe has gone through the ringer. I've tried many different ways to try to get this set screw out. I've tried, the Allen wrench and the rubber band. I've tried super glue. I've tried an extractor. I've tried everything. And so now the last resort is just to use a drill and drill out the set screw. And before I did that, and this is crucial, I needed to figure out what size hole I need to drill so that I can tap that for a new set screw. And then I gotta make sure I have the right drill size, the right tap size, all these things. So I did do that. And here is my set screw. If you can see that, kind of large, kind of a big set screw. A little bit, quite a bit bigger than the set screw I had. You can see the set screw. This is not the one that's in there. If I could have gotten it out, I would have. This was in another spot. It quite a bit bigger, but I needed a hole big enough to completely, I didn't want to leave any of the threads in there. I want to be sure to get all that, because I might could have picked that out, but maybe I couldn't pick that steel out, the threads from the screw as I drilled out. I just wanted to get it all in one fell swoop, and it was this size. Now I needed to make sure that I got one, I loved one 1/2 inch. Big box store didn't carry 1/2 inch set screw, so I got 3/8, which will be fine. Any taller, and it would have been protruded past the gear, which would have messed up my belt on here. So I would prefer, usually I try to tap things on the drill press. That way I've got a flat surface. I know I'm drilling perpendicular, parallel, however it needs to be. With this lathe, I can't get this on the drill press, and even if I do, I'd have to try to level it out. So I'm going to basically eyeball drilling the hole best I can. I like it straight, and like to tap it straight so that this set screw goes in straight and as perpendicular to the shaft as possible. Now there's some margin of error. I mean, if this thing is slightly off angle, I don't think it's going to be a big deal. I prefer as straight as possible. We'll see. That's it. So step one is to line this up and try to get it as straight as possible to drill the set screw out. Once it's out, I'm going to tap the hole. I'll use lots of cutting oil because you really need that when you're tapping. Well, I'll show you tapping when we get to it. First it's drilled out, and we might soon have this thing usable again. It was a little bit more work than anticipated. I thought I could just get this screw out with a number of methods. Go big or go home, I guess. So I've got to set a lock pliers on the shaft just so it doesn't spin one way or the other as I'm drilling. I put a piece of tape on the end of the drill bit just so I know how far to drill and I don't drill too far. A little bit bigger hole than I'd like, but I only had certain drill, tap size, and everything worked together, and this is what it needed to be. Just thinking, probably should be using cutting oil. Just gonna prolong life of my drill bit, reduce heat, friction, all that good stuff. Let me do that real quick. Missed the hole the first 2 times, of course. It always takes longer than I think it will. And while I've drilled through a lot of metal, I've not drilled through enough metal. I finally drilled through this set screw. You can see that's the bottom of the set screw in there. It's not attached. We've gone through it. Now this gear still doesn't want to budge. I'm guessing you can tell by the general rustiness of it. It must just be a bit of rust on the shaft. So I'm going to add some penetrating fluid on this end of the gear right here, this end of the gear up here, and inside this hole to try and break down where it's breaking in. After that, a good amount of force may break it clear. But I was hoping that once I get the set screw out, it would just slide on out. That was obviously a pipe dream. That is not working out. So I've drilled the set screw out. I mean, I couldn't get this thing to move by hand to the pry bar, so I'm going to use a little bit of encouragement. See if that'll work. Oh yeah, alright, so that has moved. I put some WD-40 in it because I figured just a little bit of rust in there was stopping it. So that gear is sliding freely along the shaft, which is exactly what we want. So the next step is to press the shaft out of there. I think I'm going to figure out some kind of clamp arrangement where I can just get a clamp and push the shaft right out. I'd seen online, I don't remember where, reading about how hammering it can somehow mess up your bearings. I don't see how that's a much bigger difference than pressing out. I guess maybe it's just the more impact with your hammering, where if you press it, maybe it's a slower. I don't know. But I'm going to see if I can press it. I think that's going to be a little bit easier than hammering it. Because, too, with hammering, you got to have a hold a block of wood up here so you don't damage the end of the shaft. You don't want it, whatever. I'm going to see if we can just press it out. At least the gear is loose. That's great. We're making progress. I mean, this thing may actually work yet again, which would be great. It's been a little bit of trouble. More trouble than I expected when I took this thing. I thought I was getting a free tool. I didn't know I was getting a project to boot. Check out this setup. I've got my handy 12-inch C-clamp. I've got a wooden clamp here, basically just try to hold those together. Some spacers of plywood and 2x4. And then a plywood on top. I'd like a 2x4, but I just don't have enough space. My clamp is not big enough. So I've tried to center the clamp on the one end of the shaft to the other end, because if you have it off center, it's going to want to twist, or not twist, it's going to come off. So I'm going to see if we can get this going without snapping the plywood. I'm just tightening this clamp. Since it's all centered, oh, we've got movement. That came out easier than I thought it would. Boom! That means that shaft is out. My whole post piece comes falling down. But the shaft is out. Yeah, that was the tricky part about this. Now if I can figure out how I got all this together. It's a real post piece. Alright. Oh yeah, let's see. Oh, still some amount of resistance. That might be my gear. Yeah, the gear is still giving me some resistance. Oh. It needs a little bit of persuasion. You can see right here, that is my bearing race. I think it's race. I know it's a bearing. I think it's called a race. But this is good. This means there is hope yet. But that gear is just a little bit stuck. Unfortunately, I don't know. See if I can find all the pieces. See if I can hammer that thing out a little bit. So I'm holding one end of the shaft. I got a piece of plywood between the bearing and the opening, just because I don't want to tear up that bearing, because I'd like to reuse that. I'm just going to see if I can. Oh, there it goes. That gear just needs a little bit of persuasion. I'm guessing it's just the fact that there's some oxidation there. And you just step it up to a 2x4 to give me a little bit more space, because again, I don't want to tear up that bearing. It still is not all the way off the shaft. Oh, so there is a groove for the set screw in there. I got a 3/8 inch set screw, thinking that I wanted a half, because that was how much height I had. If I got in a 5/8, it would have been perfect, because there's a groove in the shaft. So 5/8, it would have sunk in there an eighth. So 5/8 probably maybe what I needed. Am I gonna get back now? Probably not. 3/8 is fine. It'll just be a little bit farther in the hole. I think it's gonna be okay. But I didn't know there's gonna be a groove in the shaft. I just figured it was normal shaft. Keyed, not really keyed. So that right there, that is the end of the set screw. That is, no longer needed. So there was a groove in there. I'm having a little trouble getting the gears off the end of it. Now I've pried it to get a little bit farther off. Do I need to take it all the way off? I don't know. It'd be nice just to clean the shaft up and lubricate it. But then my question is, well, if I get it off, am I having trouble getting it back on? Maybe, but I think I can handle it. I think if I can clean everything up, it'll probably go on easier, because it shouldn't really be any difficulty getting it on or off. It should just slide right on. So I'm going to see if I'm just putting wood between the bearing and the opening and using a pry bar, and in some cases a mallet to using a pry bar against the gear to pry it off. I don't know why it's so tricky. I think it's just years of oxidation. I have cleaned the shaft, the bearings, the openings, everything. And basically what I just did, I took a wonderful blue rag, a little bit of WD-40. WD-40 is a detergent, not a lubricant. That's important to note. I'll come back to that. I just wiped the shaft, the bearings, everything down You can definitely see a little bit of rust. You know, the rag's coming up kind of reddish, goldish brown. Reddish, goldish? No, just kind of a reddish, rusty brown. So then I took just a little bit of Brillo pad, not Brillo pad, scuff pad, whatever this is. It was cleaner when I started. And I wiped down the shaft, the bearings, everything, just to, if there's any burrs, anything not smooth, wipe it down, get it smooth. WD-40 again with a clean rag, wiped it down. So everything is good and clean. It is ready for reassembly. And so the difference between a lubricant and a detergent, WD-40 is a detergent, that means it's going to cut through, gunk everything, get rid of whatever is there. Now, like in your car, you run oil in your car because that lubricates the metal and it creates as close to a frictionless layer as you can between like your pistons and your block, because you want that oil to lubricate so that it's not metal shaved on metal, because then you get metal shavings, things wear down. You don't want that. Now, if you ran WD-40 in your car, it would clean out everything where it's metal on metal and there's no lubricant, and you want that lubricant. So that's all. That's the difference between detergent, or that's the difference between detergent, which is WD-40, and oil, which is lubricant. Like, you know, if you're spraying like a door hinge, a lot of people spray WD-40 in a door hinge. You don't want to do that. WD-40 A attracts the dust. B, it's meant to clean out whatever's there. You want a lubricant, which is going to create a coating or a layer between the metal door pin and door hinge, so it'll be quiet. WD-40, it's never going to quiet down. Just a little fun fact for you. So everything is clean. I'm going to reassemble. Actually, I need to clean inside the housing because I've not cleaned that. After I get that, it's time for reassembly, and I just need to make sure to get my, I'm in my haste. It's very easy for me to forget, oh, I need to put a belt on this, and just put everything back like I've seen it for, this duration of this project where there's no belt on it. I really need to remember to slip that belt on first before I reassemble everything and press it in. But after that, it should be good. We should be on the downhill of this. Oh, I need to thread my gear. Then ready for assembly. Don't want to jump too quick. It's easy to forget these things, put it all back together, and I'm like, oh crap, I didn't tap that. Need to. I've never actually plugged it in to make sure it cuts on. I just was kind of betting on that fact. I should cut it on and make sure, because if it doesn't even cut on, this was all for naught. I think it will cut on. I was told it works. It just needs a belt replacement. So I'm gonna trust in that right now, because oh man, how demoralizing would that be if I do this whole project, assemble it, and then I flip the power switch and it doesn't come on. Ugh. All right, it is time to tap this gear. So I've drilled a clean hole in it. There are no threads in it, so you need to tap it. A tap looks like this, and so I drilled a 5/16 of an inch hole. And this is a 3/8 by 16th tap. And I made sure that I could get a set screw that was 3/8 by 16th before I did all this, because if I can't get the set screw, well, it doesn't match the hole I drilled. So basically, what you do, it's going to be a little bit of feel. A lot of times I'll try to do this on a drill press, so I'll make sure I'm getting straight, parallel, good holes. With this thing being around it, I couldn't. So I'm not going to do this yet, because I haven't had any cutting hole. Basically, you're going to kind of put in that hole, you're going to kind of feel to get a feel for what you think is center, and that's the best I can do with what this is. And then you're going to turn. And so I'm going to basically I'm going to have a lot of cutting hole. You want to keep it lubricated. And I'm going to turn a quarter turn, and I'm going to turn back. Because what you're doing is you're cutting threads into this gear. So I'm going to do a quarter turn to cut some threads, and then I'm going to unscrew it, and that's going to pull those chips out. If you try to wrench the whole thing around, you're going to screw it up. You've got to clear the debris, the metal chips you're creating as you cut the threads into this, because you're cutting those threads, so you need to unscrew it to remove those chips, that debris, get a clean hole, get a clean cut. I'm just going to put some cutting oil on my tap. So while you're going slow cutting these threads, it does create a fair amount of friction. Quite locked in yet. I can feel it cutting, so it's close. Well, like that, I just mean fully seated. I just feel like I'm getting a little bit of wobble. But on that twist, we may have got it. But you can feel it cutting as you go. So you turn, and you loosen it because you want to get rid of any chips. Take this all the way out. I'm going to re-oil my tap. Yeah, see, I can see threads in there. That is always a good sign. You can see My tap is getting gunked up. See how usually that thing twists in there? Good clean threads. So you can see it's basically quarter turn forward, half turn back. Got these threads. Oh yeah, see, that's fully in. You see, that thing is just twisting freely. So I've gone all the way in. I've got a threaded hole. Now the hope is that my set screw will thread into this and fit right. If it doesn't, well, that's a bit of a problem. Problem is something I wouldn't have to deal with, and I don't think I will, because I've followed the instructions, I've taken my measurements, but there's always that little bit of concern that maybe something went awry somewhere in the process. See, and so that gunk in the flutes, that is metal. That is the metal I've cut for these threads. Because you're cutting just a little bit at a time, so it's tiny little pieces. And that's why you have these flutes in the taps, because that is where the metal you're cutting is where it collects in those flutes. So every time I'm turning, I'm cutting the metal, then I'm twisting, and it's collecting those flutes. Now, let's go for the moment of truth. Will my set screw fit? Well, I don't know. Could be I'm cross-threading it. I really need an Allen wrench. But let's try and just do this by hand. Oh, look at that magic. Look at that magic. It's going. It's good. We are set. Now it is finally time for reassembly. I think I've got all my pieces together. I've got the gear hole threaded. There is a set screw in there. And man, I wish I knew. I know there's a groove in the shaft, because I would have got that 5/8 inch set screw, and that would have set flush, would have been perfect. This is a little short. I don't think it matters. I mean, this shaft, there's not a ton of force on this, I don't think. So now it's time for reassembly. So I've got the shaft that I'm going to put back in there. We'll have to press it back in there, but before I press it back in there, I'd be absolutely sure to A, get the gear back on, get the belt back on, and then insert it. I mean, this, I don't know, this thing just seems crazy to me that this is how this is done. I did read somewhere through Google searching that you can get like a linkable belt or something. That seems awesome, because you can just, you know, link it to any size you want, and if you need to take it apart, it's much easier than having like, I mean, this is a lot of disassembly just for a belt. The manufacturers couldn't assume that that belt would last forever. I mean, there's no way. It's a rubber belt. I don't even know if the one that came with it. You know, sometimes you can get the polyurethane belt. I had that on my bandsaw. That's going to last a very long time. Bandsaw. Yeah, polyurethane belt, but that's not a little different belt. I don't know. I'm rambling now. So I need to clean this thing up inside. Always something. I got a bunch of WD-40 in here and thread cutter. A bunch of metal shavings as I was drilling. I guess ultimately it doesn't matter. It's good to have a dirty lathe. It makes it look like you use it all the time and you're busy. So I just make my tools dirty. I don't even use them. I just make them look dirty so it looks like I'm busy. Alright. I do remember which way the gear goes on there. That is important. You don't want to forget which way the gear fits onto the shaft. Hopefully it'll slide right on there. Oh yeah, it's sliding pretty easy so far. A little bit of resistance. There, that resistance kicking in. I'm just kind of pushing it against the opening of the lathe. There we go. I need a block or something in here. There we go. Oh man, you know what? I've not put the belt on here yet. Let's see if I can get it. Oh yeah, there it goes. It slid out. Just something right at the end there. It creates a little resistance. That was almost bad. I almost put the whole thing together without putting the belt on there. Oh man, hope this belt is not the right size. There's so many things that can go wrong or awry in a situation like this. So this is the belt. Hope it lasts a long time. I mean, this is almost one of those things where if your belt breaks, you just think, you know what, I'm going to buy a new lathe. I think that's the way out of this. You know, there's a speed. I need to probably figure out, oh no, I don't need to figure out which speed I need to set the belt because the motor has a tensioner you can loosen to set the, set the speed of the belt as to what gear it's on. Now that belt went way far off. So I need that shaft to come through the end just right. It doesn't look like it is. I don't know how you counteract that. Well, that ain't exactly it. I just didn't want to center right. So I already pressed it back in, just got started, got excited, forgot to hit play. I did hammer it a little bit just because my clamp is only so big. Once you get the plywood and everything kind of hold in place, I put my wood clamp on this side, plywood across it, pressed right against the bell end of it. But I did have to hammer it just to get it in there enough to where my clamp fit because just kind of sitting at the edge didn't fit. But after that, the shaft, everything went in there rather well. I had my wood clamp on this side, keeping this bearing in place. I didn't clamp down it too tight. Once I was sure the bearing was in place, I let it be because I don't want to crank on that bearing. Generally not good. But it is together. It is back. Now I need to tension the belt correctly. Tension the motor. It's got just a little handle that you'll tension it. I need to put the bell end on the other side. But I think this is pretty much together. I still need to cut it on to make sure it actually works. Again, I'm told it was, but I think we're in business, or at least this close to being in business. And this is all just a precursor to me learning how to use a wood lathe. That's I have a larger wood lathe. Thought I'd do baseball bats. I don't know why. I don't really have any real reason to do baseball bats, but it just seems fun. Or maybe a table leg. I don't know. I got it because there's just a crazy good deal on it. And then you have this lathe. Like, oh, I really should learn the wood lathe. And then I got this mini lathe. I'm like, well, now I really need to learn to wood lathe because I have two lathes. How can you have two lathes and not know how to lathe wood? Yeah, that's kind of what's going on. As I'm buttoning this thing up, I'm putting this end bell on there, and remember, like, I got 2 set screws. Almost forgot to tighten the set screw on my gear. All the trouble I went to with it, almost forgot to tighten it. I'm going to do that now. So a couple things as I'm getting into this. The belt, the gears need to line up top to bottom before I hit the set screw, and I just eyeballed that. I put the belt on same area, and just same gear, top and bottom. Made sure it looked parallel. I think eyeballing is fine. I was about to tighten the set screw and I realized there is a groove for the set screw, and I don't know if that gear is twisted or turned. It probably has. So I think I'm going to have to pull the set screw out and then try to find that groove for the set screw. I wish I'd marked the shaft. I don't think I moved the gear all the way one way or the other way to see that groove. But yeah, I wish I'd marked the shaft before I did that so that I knew where that groove was to put the set screw. A wheel cursor, that's a bad design. Unless, maybe they marked from the factory and it's gotten rubbed off. Yeah, dang it, man. It definitely is not in the groove. And the reason I first learned it, I was tightening that set screw and it's like, this should go down farther. So now I've got to, alright, it twists pretty easily. I can see, well, it was twisting easily. I can see pretty easily if there's a groove in there or not once I hit it. Oh, there it is. Alright, we are in business. I found the groove. You can eyeball pretty easy. Now, if I didn't drill this hole out, it'd be a lot more difficult to see where that groove is, but now this hole is so much bigger, it's very easy. So I've done all this work, put this thing back together. Does it actually work? Here's the button. Here's the test. Wow, that's much quieter than I thought. I guess I'm so used to these big motors. Alright. So now I just need to actually lathe something. We're well on our way. The basic foundation is there. It's time to mount some wood on this and get started.